Hello, I'm Oscar Crawford. Welcome to this edition of the Teaching Ministry from New Eden. Today we're going to talk about what it means to be father and what it means to be man. I'm going to read to you a short verse from the 13th chapter of 1 Corinthians, regarded to be the love chapter of the Bible. What is interesting is that during this presentation on the ideals of love, a statement is dropped in as if just thrown right into the middle of the text that talks about what it means to be man. I hope you'll be listening today very closely. If you're a man, pay really, really close attention. If you're a woman, pay even closer attention. What does it mean to be a man and to be a father? Let's pray. Dear God, thank you once again for the privilege to meet with friends and loved ones here, to share from your word what you are saying to us for our time. May what I have to say be from your inspiration, that it might inspire others to live more loving and responsible lives, that they might become both more loving and more productive. Might we who are men become more mature men and more responsible fathers. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, thanks again for joining me. I want to read to you from this text, and I've begun to read to you regularly from the Complete Jewish Bible. And here again, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 11. Listen to what it has to say. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I argued like a child. Now that I have become a man, I have finished with childish ways. Oh my. All right. Make yourselves comfortable. Let's talk for a while. I had a woman who follows my work, who loves me, who indeed, she and I have declared that we share a daughter-father relationship over the past few years, and she's raising two sons. And she asked me a question that deserves an appropriate response for her and for many others who share her condition. Have you any idea how many single women are raising children, and single men for that matter? Would 15 million shock you? 15 million children being raised by women alone, and another 5 million children being raised by men alone. I know that experience. I had daughters in my young adult life. Privileged to raise 3 daughters was an incredible experience. An incredible experience. All right, so the young woman had this to say to me. She says, how are we to raise our sons to be great men without the presence of a father? All right, now, swallow this. It's cod liver oil kinds of medicine. Alone, a woman cannot raise a boy child to be a great father, or even a great man for that matter. You can raise a boy child as a single mom to be a responsible adult and mature person, but it is incredibly difficult to offer what you are not and do not have to offer. Let's just begin there. And we might even talk about what is it that we find so challenging about being able to mate and marry, stay mated and stay married, such that one or the other, the male or the female, wind up responsible for children born of the relationship. And 3 out of 4 times, it is the woman who is left responsible for the care, the love and care, the day-to-day provision for the children. What is it about that? What is it that has changed over time? Well, first thing I'd like to say to you is nothing has changed. This has been going on for a very long time. We live in an information age where you can know everything you want to know about anything you want to know if you're willing to do the due diligence to do the research. You can know. You would find out that all of your life there have been single women raising children around you because their relationships with men had not worked out. We might ask the question, why? One of the things that that is always troubling to me as I look at how we live our lives as men and women. The critical report here is that we are programmed to do this mating ritual chase from the cradle to the grave, and sometimes many of us don't know when to stop it. So as we've been designed to, as it reads in Genesis, replenish the earth or to populate the earth, some of our programming is stuck on to populating without being responsible for the nurture of those which we populate the earth with, boy and girl children. And so many boy and girl children are being raised in atmospheres where they do not get a complete perspective of what it would be like to live with a mom and a dad. All right, so listen, I had the privilege of growing up in a family where my mother and father are still together after 62 years. They just celebrated 62 years of marriage on July 4th. And so when my sisters and my brother and I look back, we have no notion of what it would have been like to grow up without the presence of each of them. They were always present. We got to see their full range of personality as they provided care and direction and raising of us. So when we meet others who have not had that experience, we can be with them and we can listen, but we really can't relate. So how do we begin to relate to, is there a biblical standard, is there a biblical principle for providing male presence for single women who are not that male's wife or mate? Is there a biblical premise for doing that, for a woman to provide presence to a man who's raising his children alone, but that man is not her mate or her marriage partner? So here's where we would have to begin to take a look. We take a look in the early chapters of the book of Acts where the church that has just been birthed, the church organism, become organization, has just been birthed. It's just a little bit after Jesus has died and has been resurrected. And now those who were following him are producing the living organism of relationships between people who will love and care for each other. And the book of Acts early on says that everybody brought the things that they had and shared them. They shared them with each other. And there were particular individuals set aside to look out for those who were doing without things necessary for life. And widows and orphans were among the list. So when we think of widows and orphans, we think of an elderly woman whose husband may have died and she's living alone and may be lonely and no one is being present to care for her. Or we're thinking of an orphan child who has neither living mother or father that others are going to have to take care of. I'm going to suggest to you that for the 21st century contemporary context, that means a great deal more. I've said to you before, and if you are able to really handle this, men, if you are the husband of one wife and you have your own children, and you are aware of women who are raising children, particularly boys on their own, who have no male presence or influence, you should assert connection with that family, that you might spend time, particularly with the boy children of that family, to ensure that they have a model for what it means to be man. Are you hearing me? Now, let me be clear about what I'm not saying. I am not saying become intimately involved with the children's mother. You really have to be mature not to let that become a factor. Because people generally tend to want to respond to people who are kind to them. And listen, there are many men who enjoy the experience of women who will pretend to be loving and caring about a woman's children to get together with the woman, and just as soon as they've gotten together with the woman and children are forgotten. So, woman, you have to be mature and intelligent yourself, because you may not have made the best choices for connection in the past. You must really be careful with your choice making with the men that you allow to be around your children. I hope you are hearing me. All of us know women who are living risky, crazy lives and bringing men around their children who it is not in the best interest of their children to bring particular men around. I hope you're hearing me. It happens all the time. All right, so when I go back to answer my sister's question, how are we to raise our sons to be great men without the presence of the father? There are a few things. One is, it might be good for you to begin with establishing for your own particular understanding what the responsibilities of an adult male who is a father are. There are some things that men must be guilty of doing. One is being mature enough to be creative and productive. The man who is not producing anything, the man who is not contributing to life, the man who is not providing service in any context is not a good choice to be involved with you and your family. You need to hear me. I don't care if this guy looks like Denzel or George Clooney or Brad Pitt or whoever you think is hot. If all they have to offer is their look, but they're not producing anything and don't have the capacity to give to, you need to cross them off your list. Oscar, you tell me I can't cross them off your list. Now, I'm not trying to tell you how to handle your private personal life, but your private personal life affects everything else that you do. So if you think you've got this real secret life, that you're hanging out with people because you're feeding some kind of pleasure that you need, and we all need some, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to prohibit that. I'm just saying that you cannot forsake the care of your children for the sake of your pleasure. If you are the only parent in your house, you are responsible for your children, whether there's a responsible male around or not. So what am I saying? First thing, you must engage or attempt to engage men who are responsible adults who are producing and serving and giving already. If they're not doing that, you don't have a real good reason for involving yourself and your children with them. Are you hearing me today? All right. Now, the next thing you might seek out an understanding for are what are those things traditionally that good fathers do? Good fathers protect. Good fathers protect family of wife and children. If there's extended family in the environment, adult men, fathers, protect the investment that God has given to provide love and care and nurture and developmental opportunities for their wife and for their children. Now, your wife may not need as many helps here as your children because your wife is not your child. Man, somebody hear me. Your wife is not your child. Your woman is not your child. She is an equal adult. Listen, God gave some things from the beginning. God instituted two really incredible relationships that we often, hear me, often mess up. God gave us a vertical relationship with God. I mean, we have that opportunity to be in line with the Creator, connected to the Creator, and that's a spiritual connection. That is a spiritual connection. God is a spirit, an intangible, invisible being. But we have vertical relationship with God. And God provided a horizontal relationship for us with the created woman. Are you listening to me? So we have this design that out of our meeting and greeting and negotiating interest, the opportunity to get together where our two-ness becomes a oneness, and in that oneness we create family. Now, let me tell you another mistake that men and women make. It's as if we're volunteering for stupid. And many of us have done that. Please hear me. Your brother has volunteered for stupid more times than I want to admit. Here's what we do. We get caught up in sex appeal, and if we get that bug up our nose, we can be extremely stupid. Are you listening to me? We can be extremely stupid if we get that sex appeal bug up our nose, and almost as if nothing else matters. We get insane. We blame it on hormones. We blame it on lots of internal and external conditions and circumstances. But let me tell you, we alone are responsible for our behavior. Yes, we are. So when we intentionally decide that we may have met an appropriate person to connect with, you need to be asking a whole lot of questions, men and women. If you have the notion that you might be getting together through mating and marrying and having children, there are questions that you need to be asking. Woman, you need to really be clear that the first order of business with the man you choose to be man for you, while you may have a whole lot of other things in mind, the first thing your man is always going to see is the woman in you. And if you ever begin to forget that and begin to deny that that's a primary factor in your connection, you will see your relationship disintegrate before your eyes, and you will wonder what happened, what was wrong with him. Same thing for men. If you've been that guy who's been incredibly attention-giving in your mating and marrying ritual, and all of a sudden you decide that is not necessary anymore, bro, you're going to find out you got good neighbors who would love to give attention to your wife. You need to hear me today. So I'm saying to you, as males and females who have the intention to get together for mating and marrying and creating children, there are questions that you need to be asking each other about what kind of attention is it that you really expect. You know, if I'm going to share my body, soul, and mind with you over a lifetime, how does that best happen for you? And I need to know whether or not I can even do that. And you may have to face up to, you can't be everything for somebody. But if you're going to make a choice to be together, you need to be knowing that ahead of time. You can't wake up on the other side of mating and marrying and having children with somebody and say, oops, I didn't really know they were like that. I didn't know that was part of their personality. Look, maturity swings both ways. If males and females are going to make quality choices for engagement, for mating and marrying and having children, you must make responsible, mature decisions. That word said to us, for men, when I was a child, I spoke like one, thought like one, argued like one. But look, that passed away. I have had to realize I have matured to become a man. That childish stuff is over with. I am now a builder. I'm a builder of family. I'm a builder of community. I'm a builder of states and nations and, in fact, the world. And it all starts right where I am with my wife and my children and my community. I have a responsibility to provide protection and provision and love and care and everything else. Hear me. Everything else is second to that. Everything. Mama, daddy, brothers and sisters, friends, everything is second to your wife and your children, your family, what you protect and what you provide for, what you totally invest yourself in. I hope somebody's hearing me today. All right, so categorically I'm saying, man, you cannot be a woman to your children, your sons or your daughters. I am a witness. When I was raising my girl children as a single father in the early 80s, when my oldest daughter, needed to go on her first road trip as a little girl, we're shopping for her a swimsuit because she's going to be swimming where she's going with a chaperone group of Brownie Scouts. And so I go into a dressing room with her to put on a bathing suit, and she looks up at me like, why are you here? Get a lady. Dad, why are you here? And I realized immediately that little magic period where Dad was, everything was gone. And I had to rethink how I was going to manage with my daughters. And so their mother and I got together and made a new agreement that perhaps it might be better for them that they live with her for the sake of where they seem to be developing. And that was breaking my heart. Please hear me. It was breaking my heart. And today, of the few regrets in life, I wish I'd never done that. But I allowed my children to go back and live with their mother to be what I thought would be more ideal for them and all of us in the long run. I wish I could tell you that worked out as well as I would like for it too. Now, my daughters and I are extremely close. We are really, really, really close. I can't explain to you how close my daughters and I are. But they have no confusion about what the role of a man is. Does that mean they made all really good choices for the men in their lives? Absolutely not. You know, they make mistakes like everybody else. But they have no confusion about what the role of a man is. Myself and their grandfathers, they've seen that modeled well for them. So, women, if you're raising sons, and I'm going to close here. If you are raising sons, you need to get your sons around the influence of a very positive role modeling father who already has children and sons of his own with his wife that he's living with currently. And what you want to do is you want to negotiate. You want to talk about with the wife and the husband the opportunity for your son to spend time with a man that you've now decided has enough credibility and responsibility and productivity, love, nurturing, care that you would like for your son to experience his modeling. Moms, single moms, you can't be a dad. And if you're really going to be a dad, you got to be a man. Can't just be a male. You got to be a man. You got to decide you have grown up and you quit playing around with toys like a child. You have assumed the responsibility for being a man. No, you're not going to get it right all the time. You're not going to be perfect. But your commitment to yourself and to those you love is that you're going to try your very best. It is going to hurt you to your soul when you disappoint your family or disappoint yourself because you're not everything for your family that you want to be. Because your primary goal in life, man, if you're going to be a man, you got to be a man first to be a dad. If you're going to be a father, you got to be a man. If you're going to do those things, you must clearly know what that job, that role of privilege, responsibility involves. And ladies, I know what you have a sense of needing. That's what you were created to need, and it's tough. Someday I'll talk to you about a sister who once said to me, what am I supposed to do with this fire all up in my belly? We'll talk about that because it deserves to be talked about. In the meantime, I want you to think about what I've shared with you here today. Find an appropriate role model for your sons. Find an appropriate role model for yourself. I mean, there have been women who've been down this road before, they've survived it, and their children have survived it, and some are doing incredibly well. Just because you're raising children by yourself doesn't mean they have to develop with incredible deficits. They do not. When I was a child, I thought like a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. If you're going to be a father, you got to be a man. Thank you for joining me. I'm Oscar Crawford, and this is the teaching ministry of New Eden.